to get involved, personally involved in matters of Indian politics, because it's not my place to do that. But if you were interested in what you can do as a young lawyer, I think that there are many, many opportunities to explore the rule of law and make sure that the rule of law is properly applied in all of its facets, in your country and in adjoining countries and throughout the world, because that we have to get to that point. But you have to start with your own country first, I would suspect.
James, I'll just like to add, the first thing that you need to do is, you're already 21, you better start voting. So when you get your chance this time, all of you go out, vote. That's your best chance, number one. That's where you are starting to apply yourself. Secondly, you guys have already made a mark. Whichever, act is there, or even this latest Nirbhaya, or for that matter, many of you guys are coming out in droves. You are compelling the government now to think, but do it in a more constructive fashion. Don't do it in a knee-jerk fashion. Over to you, Rajeev.
Supplement that, I think to kind of help or supplement this answer, today I think much has changed in the way corporates do business, and corporate social responsibility is something which a lot of corporates practice. Most corporates have foundations, have charitable leanings, and lawyers are part of it in trying to gear them or help them into invest or execute their charitable objectives. So to answer your question as how you as a young lawyer can kind of help balance this public welfare and investment destination debate, it is in what you practice. So there are so many avenues for young lawyers to practice this.
This may come as a shock to some people, but I do not believe in corporate social responsibility. People have social responsibility. Corporations do not. And in every aspect, corporations normally seek the lowest common denominator of the values within that corporation. So I think that really what we need to do is make sure that people have social responsibility and their values are reflected in the corporations that they own and control. To me, that is corporate responsibility. I'm not sure that I agree that some of these other things are corporate social responsibility.
Yeah, I'm sorry, very good question. I'll give you some data and supplement to what exactly he said. In 2014, in this Lok Sabha election, how many young voters will be there? Do you have any idea? I'll give you 149.7 million first-time voter, and their share in entire, the voters is 20%. So you people are a very, big chunk. And if you see the average, 50 or 55% voting is the average voters. I mean, this is, so if 20% they vote, so you need to vote, you need to choose right policymakers, and things will be on right track.
Rajeev, I'll just add on to that. How many of you guys are really interested in going into judiciary? Because this is one of the points which in the morning retired justice made. I'm sure that the moment you guys are in your final year in law, you're all thinking of corner offices. I'm sorry, I'm making a very general but a very informed statement I'm making. How many of you guys are really interested in going in and doing work on the judiciary? Because that's also one area where you can shape the destiny of this country.
Make a difference. Any other? Yes, this gentleman here, I'm sorry. Can you wait for a microphone, please? It's coming to you right now.
My question to the panel is, as I asked to the earlier panel also, not I think it was also on law side of what kind of legal reforms we need. As I am forgetting your name, you are from Coke, right, sir? Yeah, so as you said, that there are so many discrepancies, so many issues come up, and you don't know what to do, how to go about it. As I can see, the ultimate question which arises is who will bell the cat? See, there is no dearth of reports, recommendations. Everybody knows the issues. Everybody knows about it. Even the ministers are aware. Everybody knows about it. But nobody is doing anything about it. So how do you get it done? That is the thing, because this Damodaran Committee report, it talks about the ease of doing business thing, and it analyzes thing. And the most important point which it made is that it wrote to all the stakeholders, all these stakeholders, industries, industry chambers, everybody, and nobody turned up with any suggestion. Can you believe it? Yeah. So ultimately, it is an equal responsibility on the side of the policymakers and on the side of the industry. That is one point. The other point is, how do you convince the lawmakers to come up with real quick laws to address the situations, because situations are very fluid. You know, the global situation is very fluid. So you have to have responses, very quick responses, and for that, a framework needs to, I don't know how to put it, but that is my second point, you know. So the idea is, one is who will bell the cat? How do you convince them to make laws? One, as this company bill, it was lying there for since 2009, as you rightly said, it is Satyam Act in fact, because the idea is not to ease the doing of business, rather to catch the fraudulent guys. So that is, so what I could gather from Ms. Akila's presentation was that there is lack of balance also. You know, knee-jerk reactions are there. So one is who will bell the cat, and how do you respond to this thing, that the problem which Damodaran Committee faced. You know, no stakeholder turned up and suggested things to them.
That's right. I think, what probably we need to look at is, the legislative process should not be too slow or too fast. If it's too slow, then you have things like spittoons in factories. And if it's too fast, you'll have the company's bill. So I think, what we need to really learn from the experience of other countries is how they look at the future. And I think that's where the difference between the developed world and the developing world is. That, the developed world is where it is. And I'm leaving aside environmental concerns, because that's a very contentious area, and I think even the most developed economies have not fared well. But bar that, I think the developed world has got to where it is because they've been able to look at the future. They've been very good at planning long term. In India, the planning process is where I think there's been a big lacuna. And the same thing is carried forward into our legislation. So whether it is legislation, whether it is policy making, I think we need to, instead of looking at knee-jerk reactions, look at what the long term is, look at 20 years, 30 years. It's like, building an 8-lane road, which could have been done for Delhi in the 1970s. That's how US got to where it is today. So the framers of our, the draftsmen of the laws actually need to have that kind of stature, that kind of contribution needs to come into the process, which unfortunately is not there. And I don't really have an answer to that question as to why it is not there, but it is, I think, coming from a mindset which can best, fit a lot of countries like India, where you don't look at it as too long range, and at the same time you are comfortable with situations as they are. But I think what we are seeing now is that, with a younger population, with social media, there is a lot of pressure now on everybody, on society as a whole, to demonstrate visible changes. And I'm hopeful personally that we are going to see changes for the better in the days to come. I mean, in my 20 years of career, I've seen and lived through changes. We grew up with share certificates. Now you ask somebody, what's a share certificate? They don't know what a share certificate is. There's the RTI Act, which is being leveraged by lawyers, by companies to fight for rights. So a lot of changes have happened, good changes. But I think, because India sees itself as having a seat at the high table of nations, it really needs to get its act together and do a lot more
So do less of the bad things, do a lot more of the good things. I know it's very easy to say, but it's going to take time. But I think we are on that journey, and I think it's the group, it's people here in the room that are pushing this change to happen.
If I can just add a comment from the American perspective. We would probably suggest that you learn more about Thomas Jefferson. His ideas were that in order to have an effective democracy, you had to have a well-educated middle class that was involved in the decision-making process. And I think that might be good advice for India, because you are developing a middle class. You're already a democracy. So you might want to take a look at some of the things that he wrote and see if they apply.
Thank you for a very, very interesting discussion. And I just want to add one comment. I think for me, one area of real concern in the legal and regulatory regime in India for foreign investors is really the retrospective aspect. Because in all jurisdictions around the world, you have law, legislation which is prospectively enacted. And the fact that, and I think Vodafone really was a threshold moment, the Vodafone tax case, but it has happened in other areas as well. You had the case of Davis Capital in the Spectrum S auction, which was then, they signed the deal in 2004, American company, spent over $60-80 million. In 2010, it was taken back as a matter of national public policy. So I think that aspect really frightens foreign investors, and especially with the Vodafone tax case. It's not only the question of going, the fear of unraveling, M&A deals 10 years before that creates great uncertainty. And I think the points were very well made that for business, it's clarity and predictability. So if you cannot allocate your risk appropriately because you just don't know what's going to unravel, I think is a huge issue.
As a person from the corporate side, my only suggestion to the government think tank would be that I think it's high time that within the government also, like they have taken Nandan Nilekani, they should have much more players who have had huge corporate success behind them, coming and contributing to the country's, future. And that would be a great idea of, partnership, of taking it forward. And if I can just share an example here, that I was fortunate to have been part of the initial process of almost a decade of one of the most successful Japanese company ever in this country, which is Honda. So I'm just sharing this example here, which could be a food for thought for even the government. And they have this beautiful vision of, a global vision which gets transformed into a global vision. So what they say, global means that how it translates right up to the department. So for example, if it's a vision 2050 of Honda, of how they will do business in India. So it gets translated to the legal department of which I was the head. And we used to have even, departmental goals right up to 2050. Just imagine, that's the power. And this is exactly what I keep on sharing whenever I meet bureaucrats and others. That I think as a country, we need a vision document. And that vision document has to percolate down. And it has to reach finally the end consumer or the citizen.
Or you might also think about whether it should percolate up. Does your middle class, are they really involved in the decision-making process? Do they really participate in elections, and are they electing people who are reflecting their values and their views, and are they insisting that those views be represented in their parliament? I know the Americans don't always do that. We think that's the ideal, but we don't always do it. But when you have a dynamic relationship like that, you can bring about change a lot faster, I think.
I'd just like to add that yes, the middle class is waking up in India, because we've recently had an incident where just by the public changed the criminal law. It was just changed overnight. So, we've seen that happen in front of all of our eyes. And so, I don't think it's very far away for other laws.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap this up, I think.
Very
We-
quickly,
Here
Shantanu
and then
Mukherjee.
here.
Shantanu Mukherjee, I work with a company called Qualcomm, and my focus is intellectual property rights, trade law, and competition law for India, South Asia. Just one comment referring to, I think, Aman, you say? His statement. He asked, the second part was what students can do or youth can do. Definitely, I think the panel talked about elections, participating and all. But as law students, one point came to my mind, having a very learned academic sitting just next to me, that now the government, different departments, when they're coming out with policies, when they're coming out with rules, amendments of rules, that's put on the web. And the law colleges, law universities can form interest groups, whether it's IP, whether it's competition, and then send in comments as to, that will definitely be learned. One side, it would enhance their research capabilities. And then after that, it will bring in some good views, new views, that the government can look into it. And at the same time, they would be heard, and that would be satisfaction and inspiration for doing that even more.
It's a very Jeffersonian answer, by the way. He
you
believed
very
in a marketplace of ideas where all ideas could enter and the best ones would come to the surface. Ramesh.
Sorry to be perhaps the last questioner. I wanted to know, because Devdas, you mentioned your role is also in ethics, as a person in charge of ethics. What are the big challenges? I was a general counsel of an Indian company earlier.
Speak more into the microphone,
Sure.
if you would, please.
I wanted to know, I've always found this disparity between the compliance standards and the ethics philosophy of an Indian company and an international company. So I was particularly curious to know, how do you go about, for example, organizationally, making sure that corporate governance and every employee shares the global perspective, your anti-corruption